Hello and welcome. I'm Katrina Pratt Roebuck, and I am the founder and CEO of Uplifme. Uplifme is a national resource hub that provides information on resource events happening across the country that address the social determinants of health. We also highlight the great work of organizations in Philadelphia. Today, I have with me Mr. John White. And for today's session, we are going to have a special conversation in a series titled Community Legends. And so, Mr. John White is a former Pennsylvania State Representative, Philadelphia City Councilman, Secretary of Welfare for the state of Pennsylvania, and Philadelphia's Federal Housing Chief. John has had an extraordinary record of leadership in both the legislative and executive branches of government, managing thousands of people and budgets in the billions of dollars. In every instance, he brought about major improvements through his advocacy, innovative solutions, trademark diplomacy, and compassion. John is currently the president and CEO of the Consortium, which is an award-winning behavioral health provider that serves over 15,000 people every year at 5 locations in West and Southwest Philadelphia. The consortium provides an array of behavioral health and disability programs, including addiction services, behavioral health services for children, adults, and families, as well as intellectual disability support services to people across the city of Philadelphia. So, Mr. White, thank you so much for being here, and thank you for participating in this interview today.
Katrina, thank you so very much for this invitation, and I so look forward to sharing certain aspects of my story that you might be interested in. Thank you again.
Thank you. So, John, can you tell us a little bit about what drew you to the social services field?
You know, we have a family history of service.
Mm.
My great uncle, Charles Tinley, for whom the Tinley Temple United Methodist Church is named, had one of those early food programs, feeding almost 5,000 people a day.
Wow.
My grandmother was the first Negro, quote unquote, to go to work for the Voter Registration Commission in Worcester County, Maryland. When we would sit around the dining room table, my father and my mother and my brother when he was very young, I would hear the phrase, the life of Christ, the life of service is the life of Christ.
Mm.
And the life of Christ is the life of service. I heard that all my life, all my life. And then it kind of just manifested itself. I just kind of think I've always been compassionate. I've always been moved by the struggles of others. Ever since I was a child, you know, I can remember how it would feel if one of my friends was having some issues and whatnot. And then as I grew older, and I saw what was happening in our community growing up in West Philadelphia, I was looking for ways in which I could do something different. But I became a young father at 19, and I was working for First Pennsylvania Bank, gave me my first job, for real. And then I went to work for a Humble Oil Refining Company. 1970, that summer of 71, Jesse Jackson had started something called Push, the Black Expo. And the Black Expo was held in different cities and around the country. And it came to Philadelphia. And I was working for Exxon at the time and selling heating oil equipment, by the way. And there at Progress Plaza, where it was held, they had seminars upstairs in their conference rooms. And I attended one that was talking about the ills of racism and civil rights and whatnot. The young man that I was sitting beside afterwards started talking to me about the Urban League. And that I was wasting my time, he said, at Humble Oil Refining Company. And that young man was Ron Brown. You may remember him. Your viewers may remember him. Ron Brown had been general counsel to Senator Ted Kennedy on the Judiciary Committee. Clinton appointed him Secretary of Commerce when he was elected president. And at that time, he was working for the Urban League. And 2 weeks later, July the 17th, I gave up my company car, my expense account, and went to work for the Philadelphia Urban League.
Okay.
I never looked back. And that was a tremendous experience because it was at a time when young people were struggling in the city. There was gang violence and things of that nature. And so my job was with the Child Advocacy Project.
Okay.
That word advocacy has been with me ever since. That in the short term, that is who I've been. I've been an advocate. And it hasn't mattered what position I was in. You know, I've always been an advocate. The conclusion is this. When I told my father that I wanted to run for office, he was against it. For that very reason. He said that I was too sensitive and that I didn't like bloodshed. But once I got there, he told me, your job is to help lift the burdens of the poor. That's when you think about being told that in 1975 and my journey since then. From the legislature, where I was an advocate for juvenile justice, making sure that young people weren't housed with adults in jail, to City Council, where we prohibited the utility companies from turning off your utilities on a Friday. They couldn't turn them off anytime between October 15th and April. Creating a single room occupancy program. Even back then, single room occupancy, you know, still in place. The trauma centers. It's been about trying to provide services and assistance to people who otherwise were having difficulty at getting it.
Sure.
And then becoming Secretary of Welfare, that was probably the greatest honor I've ever had. Because at that point, I had an opportunity to really do something significant across the entire state, but in particular for Philadelphia. I had 38,000 employees.
Wow.
My budget ended up at $7 billion. And at the same time, I was learning. I was learning every single day. I was learning also how to become a more effective advocate. It was there that I understood the difference between political power, political influence, and authority, and how we use it. Back then, there was something called thornfare. It was a cruel way of welfare reform, just throwing people off the welfare rolls. That was not my approach. Though it may have been popular politically, what I knew was that if we said it the right way, we could do the right thing. And what I tried to do was to convince the Republicans at that time that the majority of people who were on welfare didn't want to be on welfare. And I put it in the context that no one wants to be told what food to buy. Nobody wants to be told what you have to do with your money. No one wants to have to show up at 8:30 in the morning at a welfare office to talk to a caseworker. So let's begin to address the reasons why people are having difficulty finding jobs. We did a remarkable job. We helped pay tuition for people to go to community college. In the rural parts of the state, transportation was an issue. We helped with down payments on vehicles so they could get back and forth. Stuff like that, you know. More than 380,000 people found work to something that we call New Directions.
Mm.
Every caseworker, every time you walk into a county office, we insisted that the mantra be, what can I do to help you get a job today?
Mm.
Just that language, that positive reinforcement, that sense of understanding the dignity that sometimes get lost in that whole context was important.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that made a heck of a difference. And that's where I learned a little bit about mental health. I closed Philadelphia State Hospital, helped originate, design CBH. Again, for one reason, people needed help. I wanted to be an advocate for the rights of people, for access to services for people. That's been all my life. And while I thought the welfare department was the greatest honor, I've come to find out that it's not the size of the organization that you're involved with.
Mm.
It's the consistency of the work.
Mm.
I wouldn't trade having served at the consortium for anything. Every single day, I know that we have helped somebody.
Mm.
Without fail, I know every single day the consortium has helped to lift the burdens of others.
Mm.
I'm sorry to be so long in that answer, but to say one event got me this would not be right.
Mm.
I was taught this. This was an example that I saw, and none of it was political.
Mm.
My father never held office. No one in my family ever held office. It was all about what we did in the community, what we did for people and in our churches.
Mm.
So me asking the people of the 200th district to allow me to serve them, they allowed me. And they knew why I wanted to serve. And I'm just so grateful for all these years, having been able to be an advocate and continuing to help lift the burdens of, and recognizing that the life of service is the life of Christ.
I think it's extraordinary that you've had an opportunity to be of service in so many different ways. If you've described it from a political standpoint, from being the head of a community-based organization, behavioral health provider, also as the head of the housing authority. I think sort of that flexibility, nimbleness that you've been able to translate into a lot of different spaces has been really, really important and something that people can really learn from. So I just want to ask you a little bit more about that. So can you talk a little bit about what you think are some of the key ingredients, skill sets, and strategies that social service professionals must employ to be effective?
It depends on what role. I believe that. Okay, I'm sorry. What the consortium needed when I got here was leadership. Leadership and management are not the same things. They needed leadership. I tried to hire the management, and I think we have been very successful with that. Not only providing opportunities for our people to rise to the top of their professions, but also trying to set an example. What does it take? You can't, commitment is not a strong enough word. The reason that commitment is important in this context is that there's so many slings and arrows. There's so many disappointments. There's so much frustration around trying to get the powers that be to, one, recognize the importance and effectiveness of your work, but to also understand that so much more work needs to be done. I laugh nowadays because you will often hear when you make a request for funding, We don't have the money. You know what I'm talking. You know what I mean,
Yeah.
right? We don't have the money to do that. I will never forget. I'm the secretary of the Department of Public Welfare, the largest governmental agency in Pennsylvania, the third largest in the country. When I got there, I had a $5 billion budget. I'm from 61st and Sansom Street. How could I tell anyone I didn't have the money?
Mm-hmm.
So what do? Well, we'll get into that. But the point that I was making was this. I decided how to spend that money.
Mm-hmm.
I decided how to spend that money. Remember I mentioned authority?
Mm-hmm.
Remember I mentioned authority?
Mm-hmm.
That's not influence. And that's not power. I had the authority to do something about that.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll get into some of those things that I know you'll be very interested in that we did as a result of having that authority. So commitment is extremely important.
Mm-hmm.
The second thing, do not be afraid to surround yourself with people who are better and smarter than you are about what they do.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Do not allow your ego
Mm-hmm.
to be so destructive
Mm-hmm.
that it denies you the opportunity to get the best talent, the best skill sets, the best brains, the best ideas, and surround yourself with them.
Mm-hmm.
There is no one who would disagree with me saying that because they know.
Mm-hmm.
That's exactly what I've tried to do. Surround myself with people who are better and smarter at what they do than I am. Mm-hmm. The third thing, have some integrity. And couple that integrity with credibility. Mm-hmm. There are a lot of times when what you stand for can be challenged. There are a lot of times when situations arise that are antithetical to you and where you're coming from. There's a way to get around all of that. If you take your time and you think about it, you can get there. And we can talk about examples of that. But do what you say you're going to do. Mm-hmm. I just did an orientation, as I do regularly for our new employees. Mm-hmm. And one of the things I said to them at the very beginning, I see smiles on your face. Everybody's so happy. Everybody's so excited to have this job. 6 months from now, I want you to be just as excited. Mm-hmm. Be just as excited about what you've accomplished, not what you've gotten. Mm-hmm. And then humility. Humility can be your secret weapon. Mm-hmm. I am not shy about letting people know. I don't use the word I. Mm-hmm. I try so hard not to use it. It's always a we, it's always an us. I firmly believe that no one accomplishes anything on their own. Mm-hmm. There's always someone or some group of people who help you get there. Mm-hmm. And we is important. Us better defines anyone's accomplishments. And then finally, faith. Mm-hmm. I don't care where you come from in terms of your beliefs, but knowing that someone is going to be there, protect you, to cure things that you don't even know need to be cured. Mm-hmm. My great uncle Charles Tinley wrote, "Harder yet may be the fight, right may sometimes yield to might. Wickedness a while may reign, and Satan's cause may seem to gain. But there's a God who reigns above, and if I'm right, he'll fight my battles." Always try to do the right thing for the right reasons.
Yeah. That's very powerful. Thank you for sharing those points. And I think that the faith piece of it, I think a lot of times, we don't know, and most people don't know what's going to happen, in the political season or funding or challenge that we're trying to face. But you have to have enough faith that you have people to work together with that will support each other and rise to the occasion. I think a
That's
lot of
exactly
times.
right.
Yeah, a lot of times we need to rely on that faith alone, that whatever it is we're trying to do, we can get done. So thank you for sharing that. And thinking about the we part of the work that in this amazing career that you've had, I didn't do justice by just mentioning a few of the things that you've done. Wanted to talk to you
That
about,
we had done.
say that again.
That we had done.
That you and your teams and the people that you've worked with along the way have done. I wanted to ask you about what it takes to work with other sectors in a collaborative way that's effective. So thinking about public sector, the nonprofit sector, academia, health systems, what do you think from your experience, what you've seen, are some collaborative solutions and ways to get to collaborative solutions that might be possible? What are some ways that we could do that better?
For me, it started with asking the question,
Mhm.
particularly amongst our universities and research centers. There's so much research out there, Katrina, that we don't know
Mhm.
about.
Yes.
So much.
Yes.
Um, we have um, a a phone app, an app, okay, CareMinder.
Mhm.
There's a neurological uh, device that's now available that will cut down on your cravings in addiction situations.
Mhm.
Um, all of this research, trauma came out of research. Cognitive behavioral therapy came out of research. All of that started within our institutions. And so being curious enough to ask, what are you learning? What are you finding? And then try to build some solutions around those things that
Mhm.
work.
Mhm.
Now, that requires risk.
Mhm.
That requires risk. And in my view, a good leader uh, takes is willing to take a reasonable risk.
Mhm.
Okay, terrible example, but you're crossing the street, the light turns yellow, you cross anyway. You're looking both ways, right? That's a risk. Same thing here. Um, do you risk telling your employees go back to school and get a certification
Mhm.
when you don't pay for it, and they get that certification and then they leave?
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
You've invested, they've gained, and then they've moved on. That's not a wasted resource. You're fertilizing the system. With the consortium, we have 3 individuals who earned their PhDs while working with us.
Mhm.
They're still here, Katrina.
And why is
We
that?
the culture, I think, the commitment, uh, and just the way we are. That's what we're doing. I'm really proud of these folks. I'm so proud of the work that our people are doing,
Mhm.
um, and to know that you will be willing and have enough trust in your leadership to want to still utilize the improved knowledge, increased knowledge, the improved skills that you have obtained over the years and in your academic standing, that you still want to use that back in our community
Right.
when you don't have to.
Right. Right.
When that PhD can take you to a whole nother institution,
Mhm.
serving a whole nother group of people.
Right.
They have chosen to stay in West Philadelphia, where we serve people. 3. And I have one more who'll be receiving her PhD next spring.
Mm.
She ain't going nowhere either. What was your question?
No,
Oh,
it's
so
okay.
you're going to destroy this tape the way I'm going on and on and on.
I love to listen to any of the wisdom that you give me personally. So I was following along with you. My question was about collaborating with other
Yes,
sectors.
yes,
Then it
yes.
makes me, I think I want to come back to that because now I have a question to ask you about how you've retained people with such talent and capacity. But finish talking about the
The
collaboration with
common ground.
sectors. Okay.
What are our common interests?
Mm-hmm.
What are we trying to achieve? I use the example of foreign fair.
Mm-hmm.
That was a conservative Republican initiative. We came in, the Casey administration, we were Democrats.
Mm-hmm.
The Senate was still Republican. The House was still Republican. And the whole thing around welfare and welfare assistance and all of that, right? What's the common, what do we have in common with that? Well, first thing is, most of the money in welfare goes to nursing homes.
Okay.
We want to continue to have nursing homes, right? Yes, we want to do that. When people become eligible in a nursing home, and most do, end up on Medicaid. So you don't want to mess with that. No, neither do we. Food stamps. Well, the federal government food stamps. Oh, you don't want to do that, do you? People want to eat. Yeah, well, where did your food come from?
Mm-hmm.
Where are these farms? Where are fruits and vegetables coming from? Where's the corn coming from? That's being bought with food stamps. Well, that's your farm. Those are your farms. You're growing much of the food that we're buying. Okay. So we got that in common. Now let's talk about the welfare check. What do you want to see? We want to see people be able to stand up on their own 2 feet and not need the government. Oh, we don't want people to cheat and rob the government. Oh, that's interesting. Let me see. What do we want? We want an opportunity to get a job to come off of welfare because we don't want to be on welfare. You have your interest, I have mine. How do we do it? They say punish them, throw them off. If they're late for an appointment, get rid of them. I say, well, that don't help because they get right back on. Is it more costly to spend back then $2,000-$3,000 to pay part of the tuition for someone to go to Lehigh County Community College to become an emergency room technician in 6 months and get a job? What if we gave you a $2,500 allowance? You're gonna get a used car, so you can get from Wilkes-Barre to Scranton for a job. Stupid stuff like that. We had in common. We had in common. We will argue about the punishments. Oh, sure, we did argue about that because I did not think it was fair if my mother had to take me to school and I had to be there at 8:30, that you would give me an 8:30 appointment at the county welfare office.
That's right. That's right.
And then punish me if I was late.
Right.
We thought about that. But that whole phrase, what can I do to help you get a job today? That spun the entire Republican caucus around.
Wow. Wow.
We found the common ground.
Yeah.
And I've learned from, some veteran folks that every meeting that you go to, and I've told you this, every meeting you go to, you don't know why you're there.
Yeah.
What you want to get out of it. And you want to know why they're there. And what they're trying to get out of it. If your opponent, if you know, I've told you this too, if you know and your adversary does not know that you know, you'll win 99% of the time. Knowing what they want. Listen to the opposition. if you allow people to talk and express themselves, you'd be surprised the collaboration that you can build on.
Mm-hmm.
Unless it's what we're seeing today with Trump and them, where there is no compromise in that. There's one thing that I wanted to add, if I might.
Sure, please, please.
I believe that the foundation of a public service career begins with your principles and your values.
Mm-hmm.
What do you stand for? And how does your career in public service reinforce that? Brand you, not this one, but the other one, okay? About what you stand for, your principles and your values. And I contend, if more of our elected officials and if more of our quote unquote public servants were doing it based on their values and their principles, you would see a lot more change.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm having a good time. You better come on now.
Seriously, every time I talk to you, I have 5 more questions. I want to.
And this is just like that's how we are on the phone.
It really is. It really is. You were seeing what we do. And so, except I'm just not taking notes at this time. I'm normally taking notes. So asking the question, finding common ground, and really talking to and collaborating with people, knowing what their desires are, what they need to
Interests,
get,
yes.
and knowing why you're in the room. And those are the reasons that collaboration has worked for you, and then
Yes.
also other people can glean from that. You have had, in my mind, so many amazing positions. I don't know if you can sort of narrow down a particular accomplishment that you are proud of and why. And I feel like you've been talking about it this whole time, but I would be remiss not to come back to that. I really want to ask you that question because I think a lot of people know you and they know some of the work that you've done. But what for you personally would you say is one of your proudest accomplishments and why?
There's one thing I'm very proud of that intersects with every one of my stops, every one of my stations.
Okay.
And I want to put it in 2 forms, if I may.
Okay.
Number one is offering an opportunity for people who may not otherwise have gotten that opportunity, with the expectation that they will offer the opportunity to somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
Second thing, I'm very proud of people that I've had a chance to work with who have gone on and made tremendous contributions to our community and to our society. Just to know that I was there for a minute.
Mm-hmm.
I was part of it. Estelle Richmond. We didn't know each other. I took a chance. Somebody I didn't know. Look what happened.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good example. Gordon Linton, former state representative, deputy secretary of transportation. Eric Bost worked for me when I was in the welfare department, went on to become ambassador to South Africa. I mean, we can go on and talk about that, but it all stems from the opportunities that we were willing to offer folks who may not have gotten that opportunity, for whatever reason.
Mm-hmm.
But I was able to be a part of that,
Yeah.
their success. And that's what I long to be. I want to be a part of your success. I'm not looking to be the reason. I just want to be a part of it. Maybe there's some small kernel that I might be able to contribute to the way you're thinking about an issue.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I'll say something to you that will make you see a bigger picture.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I'll say something to you that will remove your fears.
Mm-hmm.
So that, I think I can honestly say, is an accomplishment.
Yeah.
Because it still happens. That's the most. That goes to all of it. Then after that, it gets really hard. We helped change the skyline of public housing in Philadelphia. We gave tenants, residents of public housing, opportunity to determine their own destiny in their own communities. We helped stop gang wars in the mid-70s. Worked with high school students who've gone on to great careers. I'm just thinking, I mentioned a couple of things in the legislature and the city council. City council, we reduced student fares. Yeah, we had a student fare. We weren't paying as much to ride SEPTA back and forth to school. The welfare department.
I said you made it more accessible.
It did.
Yeah.
The welfare department, I think we got a lot done, but just a couple of things. We made it possible for people who had daycare homes, were having daycare outside of their homes, to be eligible for the subsidy. That put millions and millions of dollars into people's pockets. Because prior to that, you could not get subsidy if you took in your neighbor's child. Adoptions. We partnered with One Church at a Time when I was secretary, and there were more than 300 Black children who were adopted across this state as a result of those efforts. The child abuse assessment system. We put that. It's I'm sorry. I don't like.
No, please.
It's difficult because I don't look back on that stuff. Just truthfully, you spoke to Joel Avery on the phone or email. Several months ago, I was really honored and humbled by the renaming a street in Mount Airy in my honor. And in doing his research, Katrina, he came up with stuff that I never, I had no idea. All fact, no fluff, because I never looked back like that. There was a need. The next door neighbor, where my office was on Vernon Road, they got her electricity turned off on a Friday. Back then, you couldn't pay your bill because they weren't open on Saturdays. A situation where the landlord didn't pay a utility bill and the current turned off yours, though you were paying your rent on time. You can't do that, little things like that. Kinship care is the one that touches me the most.
Why is that?
After service at Salem Baptist Church, elderly gentleman who was in security pulled me aside and said, "Deacon White, I need your help. Our daughter ran off and left us with the kids. We don't want no money. We just want them to be able to see a doctor and give us some help with the food." That Monday morning, in my executive staff meeting, in my boardroom in Harrisburg, I had all of the deputies from the different subdivisions of the department at the table. I gave them that example. And 6 months later, you had kinship care.
Wow.
Managed care, same thing with the HMO. I took my youngest son to the emergency room at what was then the Women's Medical Center on Henry Avenue, and it was filled with children. And I was curious because they were there for sniffles, runny noses, coughing. And I'm thinking, why are they in the emergency room? They have a primary care physician. They use the hospital setting. And the clinic's there. So I asked that question. Why can't poor people have their own doctor of their choosing?
Mhm.
Medicaid HMO.
You've had the ability to take these real life examples of people coming to you for help or thinking that you needed to figure out something for yourself and your family, and you've been able to scale them to help people across the city. And that's amazing. That's amazing.
But you have to be able to listen, Katrina. You have not just hear,
Mm-hmm.
you have to be able to listen.
Mm-hmm.
Listening gives you a better chance of feeling as well.
Mm-hmm.
Look, we run into people, they say, how you doing? They don't hear your answer. But those that are listening to you will notice a difference in your voice and ask you what's wrong.
Right, right,
You got to be able to listen.
right.
You have to listen to serve.
Mm. That's important. Yeah.
You know that with your experience. I don't know why you're asking me all these questions, because you're the one that has all the traits. You're the one that's, you got it.
Well, thank you. I only have a collection of wisdom from people I talk to like you.
How
So
do you think we got ours?
Right, right, right. So let me switch to another topic. Just thinking about sort of some of the both the local and national challenges that we have in front of us. And hopefully we have some glimmers of hope around addressing some of those challenges. But I wanted to ask you from your perspective, if you could wave a magic wand and you could pick one resource to have an unlimited supply of that would meet a critical city need, what would it be?
Poverty.
Okay. And what
Uh,
would the resource be?
a real collaboration between the private sector,
Mm, mm-hmm,
the local government,
mm-hmm.
and the school district of Philadelphia.
Okay. And what would they do?
The school district would prepare our children for occupations in the emerging fields
And then, yeah, and emerging fields. Okay.
based on the needs that the private sector has forecasted.
Mm, mhm,
The city, where it could, would offer financial support for those children who have needs,
mhm,
uh, to be able to go to school safely and have the adequate resources needed to meet their educational needs. In other words, everyone doesn't have to go to college.
mhm,
Uh, you ride around Center City and you see the new buildings.
mhm,
You notice how much glass.
mhm,
Are we preparing children to become glaziers?
mm,
Prosthetics. That's a 6-month course
mhm,
to learn how to make a prosthetic. Um, how about cleaning emergency room utensils?
mm, mm.
Are we preparing our kids to be able to do that? But you need the private sector and the educational systems to really be in lockstep around that.
Yeah, it makes
I
a
mean,
lot of sense. It makes a lot
right?
of sense.
Okay.
Absolutely.
For years, they talked about Philadelphia being the health capital, right?
Mhm,
You'll have all this. Yeah. Okay. Uh-huh. We are maintenance engineers.
mhm.
We're food service workers.
Right.
They're not many radiology technicians, X-ray technicians. Just don't tell them. They're often, I know, okay? But I'm talking about on a scale.
Mhm,
Those technical positions, even in our field, even in our field.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah,
There,
not a lot of options are made known and available. And
they're
to
not.
your
They
point, the
don't.
pathways, right, and the emerging pathways, absolutely. And understanding that from really elementary school, so that you start to think about what your interests are, your skill sets are, and then in high school, perhaps getting more engaged in whatever that work is, especially if it's a high school that teaches a certain thing, so that you can then move on to whatever the
What about
secondary.
the art, Katrina?
Mm-hmm.
When I was in school, um, it was all city orchestra. Okay, um, uh, I was a part of that. We had music at West Philadelphia High School. We had carpentry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We had electric shop. We had auto shop
Mm-hmm.
at West Philadelphia High School. People went on to become carpenters.
Right.
Where do you go? Where do you find that now?
Yeah.
Where do you go now? If I want to be an electrician and I'm at West Philadelphia High School, what are you gonna do for me?
Mhm.
So you're too young to remember home economics.
No, I remember home economics, and I was going to say, I don't think that home economics is taught anymore. So
No,
just basic life
neither
skills.
are those other things I mentioned.
Yeah. No, I remember home economics. And I do think that that is, a lot of the folks that we see today, and in particular the younger folks that are in our systems, they don't have basic life skills. They were not taught those basic life skills in school or at
Now
home.
that's interesting. Now that's an interesting point you make. Would we look to our schools to teach basic life skills?
Yeah, I would think it's in part, right? Like I think it's partially home and it's partially school. And if you don't have it from either one, then where are you supposed to go to get that? And what are the
Well,
expectations?
you know what our family-based services do.
Mm-hmm.
You know what blended case management does.
Right.
But you also know the barriers that you have to overcome to get into those programs.
Right. And if you don't have a certain diagnosis or something that
You can't.
qualifies you for those
What did I
programs,
say?
you don't get
What
it
did I say?
anyway. Right. Right. You have to fall into a safety net system. You have to
Exactly.
fall into a safety net system to
Right.
get the
So,
support you need.
so
Yeah.
it makes clinicians lie
Mm,
and say you
to
have
help people.
what they have a situational disorder.
Oh, I never heard that before. That's a good one. That's a
Yeah,
good one. A
that's listed in the
situational
manual.
disorder.
A
Oh my goodness.
situational disorder.
Wow. Wow.
Situations arise that you don't respond well to.
Wow. See, every
Mhm.
time we talk, this is what you do.
But it becomes mental health.
Yeah, right.
So if something unfortunate happens and they look in your background,
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry.
You always have a gem. You always have a gem. Um, so yeah, I think that really thinking about better collaboration and integration of
And that's
system and
different.
work.
They're not the same. You know that.
Hmm.
Integration and collaboration, they're not the same.
That's true. That's true.
Okay.
But I'm wondering if there is a need for integration to the point of you,
No question.
right? So for the school district and the city and for the for-profit sector, really thinking intentionally about the pipelines
That's where you come in.
and supporting the pipelines.
That's where you come in. Someone has uh, to lay that out in a sensible way that people see the benefit of it.
Mhm.
And that the entity see the benefit of it. You
Mhm.
know, I hate to talk about it, but does it save money?
Mhm. Mhm. Oh, it
Right?
absolutely
Save
will.
money.
Absolutely will.
Um,
Right.
does it make a difference between cost avoidance and cost savings? Right? Um, you introduce a situation where you reduce the number of people using emergency rooms.
Right.
Saves money, better care too.
Mhm.
Saves money, better care. Change the way kids think about harmful behaviors.
Mhm.
Police, incarceration, courts,
Mhm.
safer living environment, better
Mhm.
educational opportunities. less crime, more productivity among our citizens.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. I want to close us out, and I feel like everything you've said along the way could answer this last question, but I still want to ask it. And that is, what words of wisdom do you have for all of us in the thick of our careers to be impactful?
Did I not command you to be strong and to be of good courage? The Lord your God, whatever that is with you always. Faith. Faith that you will be able to accomplish the right thing by doing it the right way. Faith. So be of good courage. Be cheerful. Know you can do it. Stay focused. Stay focused. Become a good listener, not just a hearer. Be willing to take a reasonable risk. Be willing to try to improve the qualities of life that people live every day.
That was well
I
said.
just described Katrina Pratt Roebuck. For the viewers, I need to just say this. Uplifme, Katrina's creation, is a landmark opportunity to communicate with people. This young lady is an expert in getting government to link arms to try to solve a problem. She has the stamina because she's been doing it a long time. And we all ought to be proud of her and grateful to her for her work. That's the truth. It's not hyperbole. I don't have to flatter Katrina. And there are plenty of people who will share my sentiments. Love you. Best to you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. It's an honor. Thank you for spending time for me.
Honor is mine.
For being a mentor to me. Thank you
so much, lady. Thank you. Bye-bye now.
Take care.